Yo guys, I've got an interesting video for you guys today. I think it's an insightful one. I think it's not talked about a lot, and it's on the topic, or let's say the title of the video is living in Palestine and how that shaped my thoughts on business and entrepreneurship and maybe the non-mainstream stuff that we kind of associate with Palestine. So I'm originally from Ramallah, which is a city in the West Bank, but I am from the villages, so the outskirts of Ramallah, in the village of Nabi Saleh. It's a fairly small village, maybe 900 people in there. Everyone's kind of related to everyone. Everyone's from the same family, and I lived there for 5 years, I'd say. And those 5 years were from kind of like secondary school, so from the beginning years of secondary school till the end of it. So I graduated in Palestine, done all my studies in Palestine. So yeah, what I want to touch on is kind of the shift in culture, in mentality, in the difference of approach on how Palestinians differ so much to kind of maybe British people, or, and I say that in good and bad, not necessarily meaning like a crazy difference, but I think one of the main touch points I want to focus on is how Palestinians have a resilient mindset. And I think the key things about business and about being an entrepreneur is kind of that cliche of how hard you can get here and how hard you're willing to sacrifice and keep going. And I've seen that kind of live in the flesh of how Palestinians on a day-to-day. So let's talk about an example, for instance. So my village in Nabi Saleh, outside the village there is a day-to-day checkpoint. So literally in front of my house, maybe a couple 100 meters away, there's a checkpoint. And every morning, if you want to go to work, you have to go through that checkpoint. And that is just your day-to-day, that's what you go through. And the Palestinians just become so accustomed to it that it's another day. Whereas I'd question how much maybe British Western people would be able to handle that much inconvenience and that much hassle on a day-to-day. And I think it resonates with how Palestinians approach things. So their mentality is very hard-hitting, very resilient people. And I think when I saw this live in the flesh, I'd see little kids going up to Israeli soldiers and him telling them, get out my land, get out my face, why are you here, why are you this? And he'd have the audacity to be speaking to a soldier with an M16. And I'm thinking, how is this? It's not fathomable, to be honest. When I'm in England, I'm like, yeah, the big eats the small, or like kind of like just your typical, like whoever's stronger, like you just deal with it. But there, they don't care about nothing. They don't care about anything. I don't care if you have an M16 rifle. I don't care if you've got a Kalashnikov. I don't care what you have. Yeah, because I am a person of right, that means I need to demand my right. And I think when you're a businessman, when you don't fear your kind of, let's say, opponent, or let's say you're not as fearful of maybe being in a client meeting, maybe being in a cold call, maybe being out in the streets trying to sell your merchandise, whatever form of business, when you're not as fearful of the other person and you're not fearful of that rejection element, then it takes you so far. And I think living in Palestine, I learned that in its purest forms, and just seeing it from little to old, from woman to child to man to infant, in all sizes, in all shapes and forms. So yeah, that was one of the key maybe mentality shifts that I wanted to embody in myself. And I touch on that in a moment, when I launched my first business in Palestine. And that was kind of a journey of how do I do it, especially in a country where, like I was saying, there's checkpoints. So imagine trying to get product in, or maybe trying to get your merchandise in, or whatever business you're trying to do. Imagine how many kind of roadblocks and checkpoints you have to go through just to carry out day-to-day business. So I'll touch on that now. So yeah, as I was saying, one of the first businesses I launched in Palestine was a business. It was a mixture. So I had my own YouTube channel where I document kind of my drop shipping journey, and the goal of my business was to bring in gluten-free protein bars, protein cereal, all of these like products that like kind of the vegan, the vegetarians, and like just new products that we don't really see in these type of areas. And especially because there's a lot of people with allergies, people with different kind of dietary plans and stuff like that, and they can't eat a certain food or stuff like that. So what I tried to set out to do was find a way to bring in protein bars that are maybe gluten-free, all the sorts, stuff like that are just for different people, maybe clearway, all of these stuff that maybe either are not there or are just very, very expensive. So I wrote it down on my notepad, and I said, how do I do this? So the first thing I ever done was market research. So I went out in the streets of Ramallah, I went out in the markets of Ramallah, and I said, where do people sell this stuff? So I asked a couple people, asked them where the gym areas, and it will be some random ass product that you've never seen or heard of, and it'll be for the price of like £50 for like a couple. That is very expensive. So I used to take pictures of every product. I used to note down on an Excel sheet, this supposed product, maybe let's say whey protein, maybe let's say protein bars, how much it costs, and maybe like the nutritional value and stuff like that. Let's not get into the nitty-gritty, but in terms of what the market was saying and how I can come into the market in a different way, if that makes sense. So I set out and maybe done a day or two of just going through every shop that I saw, maybe every just gym in our gyms in Palestine. They sell, like, I mean, maybe most gyms do that kind of, but they sell like the products and stuff like that. So I went into gyms, asked how much it is, took pictures, got kicked out a couple of times for being a bit weird. But yeah, so I've done my market research. So I'm thinking now, okay, so this is maybe £5, this is £10. How do I then reduce it? How do I then bring it into to Palestine, and what are the intricacies? So I've written down the products, I've written down what I needed to do. Now it's about details of getting suppliers from abroad. So I've looked online for suppliers, I've looked for suppliers in the UK, maybe suppliers in France, in white labelling products, just all sorts, and how I can maybe get into Palestine. So I've noted that down, and I've also done a price range on like what's the minimum quantity amount, what's the pricing, what's maybe the nutritional value of each one, how can I maybe get this quantity, maybe different products, what products I need, etc. So I've also done that, and then I've hit a kind of just maybe a roadblock, or a just kind of a hump in the road of how do I even bring it in the first place. So Palestine, to even deliver stuff into the country, you'd order something in maybe January and it'd come in maybe July. So if I'm trying to run a business here, that makes zero sense. If I've got like just demand on demand, yeah, and I'm not saying you would necessarily get it on the first couple stages, but let's say I did get to a point of where I was getting just too much demand and I couldn't meet the market, how do I then bypass that? So then I reached out to a couple people that I know, to go through maybe from different governments. I don't even get into the nitty gritty, but different governments coming into maybe the Israeli areas, and how I could maybe taking the product without the tax, for instance, because the tax for Palestine is just crazy, and also it's called like we call it a jumruk, so it's without kind of like the product tax, and then also the delays on delivery. Everything is just a hell of a journey to get it in. So I've contacted other people to maybe get the product in and stuff like that. So I've done all of this, and I've documented a couple videos. It's online. I'm not going to say the YouTube channel because I'm a bit embarrassed, but nevertheless, I think the biggest, bearing in mind I was 16 years old, and for a 16-year-old in those areas, you're not really thinking of ways to, like, drop shipping was not even a thing back then. I think I couldn't even explain it to people in Arabic, obviously. I can explain it to them in English, and at 16 years old I just wanted to find a way of getting something flowing.